Hi guys, sorry I'm a little bit in the light. It's a little bit awkward at the moment to sort of manoeuvre stuff around, so I've got the light coming in. Let's see if I can kind of sit in it. There we go, that's a bit better. I've just woken up, so yes, I am in my pyjamas still. My hair's a bit of a mess, but you know, let's crack on. So today I'm going to be reviewing To Hold the Bridge by Garth Nix. I've also done a kind of book inspired look for this, so I'll link this around. But this is basically a short collection of stories by Garth Nix, and it features quite a few different genres. You might hear Vera, our cat, trying to come in, but I've got the door shut to cancel out any noise because everybody's just waking up, so she can come in later. So yeah, I was really kind of interested in reading this initially because I thought, oh my god, it's got loads of different genres, they're all short stories, I can kind of sample some of Garth Nix's other type of writing. And the main thing I really wanted to read in this was the title name, To Hold the Bridge, which is a Old Kingdom short kind of story novella, so that's the thing that I was really excited for, and the fact that it had other things in it just made me like eager to pick it up, I suppose. I actually ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. I didn't really know how to review this because before, when I've read short stories, I've kind of rated them individually, but I didn't with this one. Instead, I just gave them kind of brief little reviews individually. So if you do want to hear my individual thoughts of each story, I have that written down on Goodreads, so you can check that out if you want, but it's going to make this video too long, so I'm not going to kind of read it in here. So just so you know, the stories that are in here are To Hold the Bridge, an Old Kingdom story, and then it categorises the others. The next section is called Creatures of Darkness and Light, and in that section there's Vampire Weather, Strange Fishing in the Western Highlands, and Old Friends. And then the next section is called Standing Up to Be Counted, Coming of Age Stories. This includes The Quiet Night, You Won't Feel a Thing, A Handful of Ashes, and The Big Question. And then there's Check Your Faint Heart at the Door, Combat and Struggle. And in that section there's Stop, Infestation, The Heart of the City, Ambrose and the Ancient Spirits of East and West, Holly and Iron. And then there's another section called A Wink and a Nod, Light-Hearted Tales, and that includes The Curious Case of the Moondawn Daffodils Murder, as experienced by Sir Magnus Holmes and Almost Dr. Susan Shrike, that's a long title, An Unwelcome Guest and The Highest Justice. And then the last section was the section I was really interested in reading from him, which is called Under Other Skies, which is science fiction, and it's called Master Haddon's Holiday, a sidekick of Mars and Peace in Our Time. I will say I was initially intimidated by the size, even though I knew it was going to be relatively fast paced because they're all short stories. I mean, it kind of still took me 14 days to read, but I think that was just me like having the effort of picking it up, if that makes sense. And because it wasn't as mega awesome as I was hoping it to be, like it was still good, it was a decent read, that kind of made me reluctant to actually pick it up. This isn't much of a review so far, I feel like I'm just explaining myself, but although I did go into individual reviews for each story, I kind of wrapped up my thoughts on them after each section. So To Hold the Bridge, I'll talk about kind of on its own because obviously it's its own thing. I wasn't initially blown away by the Old Kingdom kind of novella, but I was instantly excited when Charter Magic was brought up again. That's one of my favourite things about the Old Kingdom books. I just love the way the magic works with like music and bells and stuff. It's really interesting, so as soon as that was brought in, I was getting a bit more excited. It was a pretty good story, but there was a lot of heavy emphasis on like military preparation and stuff like that, and that didn't really interest me. Nevertheless, it did have a powerful ending, and it does lead me to be more intrigued for Morgan's story, and hopefully he gets a bit more of an extension because I would like to read more about him. It was a decent start to the collection. So the first kind of section, which was Creatures of Darkness and Light, was generally good, but if I'm honest, it's not exactly memorable. I did like 2 out of 3 stories quite a lot, but it was just, I guess, okay. I can't really remember too much about that section, to be honest. Standing Up to Be Counted, coming of age stories, I really loved. I think the majority of those stories, if not all, will stay with me for quite a long while. I think the less magical ones will probably fade much faster, just because magical stories have more of a connection with me. Like I enjoy them a lot more, so those are the ones that are going to be stuck in my head for the longer time. I think this portion of short stories was one of the best. It was definitely one of my favourites. Check Your Faint Heart at the Door, Combat and Struggle. It was a far more enjoyable set of stories than I imagined. Like I was thinking, oh, it's just going to be like military again, I'm not going to really be interested in that sort of thing, but actually I enjoyed it far more than I thought I was gonna, I guess. Honestly, I have no interest in this kind of genre or this kind of writing, but Garth Nix just does it so well. Like it made me care about what was going on. Like I had a genuine interest in it after he had written the story, I suppose. I just guess it's his kind of style, the way he writes, that draws me in a bit more. I really enjoyed 3 out of 5 of the battle stories that were given to us, which were even more enjoyable because they were actually flavoured with magic. So yeah, that was quite fun. I pretty much enjoyed all of the stories that were collected under the Wink and a Nod light-hearted tales section. They were all pretty good. Even though it was the simplest storytelling that there were, they were just obviously light-hearted stories. They were the ones that I enjoyed completely, full-heartedly. They were really, really good. Under the Skies science fiction was an interesting collection. As I said, I was mostly excited to read his sci-fi, and I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't really like how Garth Nix writes sci-fi. To be honest, I've not read too much of that genre to be able to compare it with anything, but I just didn't enjoy those stories that much. I mean, when I compare it to his fantasy, I suppose it wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't for me. But nevertheless, I am glad to see how he writes in that style, and now I know what I like and what I don't like. So overall, just briefly, I'm going to go over some points. Again, this is kind of mentioned in detail on that Goodreads review, but yeah, I'm really happy that I managed to read more of Garth Nix's kind of genres. It was interesting to see how he writes in different styles and how he kind of brings that to the page. I will say I was really happy to see his signature font that he uses in the Old Kingdom books. I love that font and it just feels like home. It's very comforting, as strange as that is. Even though it did take me a few weeks to read, it's not as intimidating as I initially thought, I suppose. It was just that sometimes I wasn't, you know, drawn to pick up the book again, especially after a dud story. There were a lot of words in here that I didn't know, so I had to keep like googling what they meant, which in honesty it kind of broke up the pace of the reading and kind of made the experience a little bit halted. Is that the word? Halted? Stopped, basically. But the good thing is, at least it expanded my vocabulary. So there are some good stories in here. Overall, the collection was so-so, but there were really some good, you know, little stories that I'm eager to find more about. After tweeting with Garth Nix, kind of as I was reading this and afterwards, there are kind of hints that perhaps some of the stories will be extended into its own full novel, which I'm really excited about, so there's that to look forward to. But yeah, that is my review for this. It was a little bit of a weird review, I'm sorry, I wasn't too sure how best to get my thoughts across in video form, but hopefully that's helped you enough. Let me know if you read this book and what you thought about it, and what your favourite story was perhaps, or if you haven't read it yet, let me know if you are hoping to, and yeah, if you think you're going to enjoy it. So I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye! Jeez, I don't think I should film this early in the morning. I was a mess in that video.